Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video we're going to be discussing two different venues of CNC automation. The first part is going to cover retrofitting a used CNC robot. I don't care if you purchased it from a factory, I don't care if you purchased it from an end user. I want you guys to be aware of what you're dealing with both venues when you're looking in the used market. And the second part of the video is going to cover CNC transmissions. Once again, I don't care if you have a water jet, a plasma cutter, a mill, a router. You guys all will have a transmission that automates the machine. I get this question all the time. Which is the best application for my system? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? In general, there are three typical transmissions. There's ball screw, and then you also got the alteration of that, which is a lead screw, and then we also have rack and pinion, which is more or less just a gear and a rack, and then we have belt drive, which can be a bunch of different parts to automate the system. We'll cover that at the end, but right now what I want to delve right into is some pictures that were sent by a potential client from a system he purchased used. I believe it was $2,500. I can't remember exactly what venue he purchased it from, whether it was online like a Craigslist ad or a person that he knew, but this particular system is an industrial rated CNC router. Again, the system itself is actually a steel frame chassis, so it's extremely rigid, but it's interesting that when he sent me the pictures over, and most of you guys realize that I'm dumb, deaf, and blind online, and you have to treat me that way. When you guys go shopping for used equipment, I ask you guys for as much detail as possible, sending me, an ambiguous email with nothing in it other than, hey, I need help with my machine, or this machine is giving me trouble or whatnot. I need to see what you do. This particular client sent me some of the best pictures I've ever seen as far as the detail. He took the time, he shot them from different angles. The more I can see, the more I know, and the more I can help you make the right decision to get this machine running again in the best possible time frame, and again at the best possible economic level. So that's what we're really looking at. But again, this particular situation, this potential client went through, he found the machine. He told me that the machine is not running. That's a scary thought. If you guys buy a machine that is not running, I just want to clarify one thing, because rather than make you wait till the end of the video, if you buy a machine that is not running, the minimal cost for a machine that is not running, the absolute minimal cost will be $1,000. Okay? If it's not running and it has been sitting, that will be usually double or triple. Okay? So if it's not running and it's been maintained, $1,000 guaranteed. If it's not running and been sitting, and depending on the environment, easily 2 to 3 times as much, so we're looking 2 to 3K. Think about that. Okay? Think about your time, think about your money, think about your business. Okay? As we look at this system, and I'm just analyzing the picture we have here of the spindle, we can see we have surface rust on the actual connector, the GX16 3-pin connector on top. We see we have surface rust on the water ports that are actually going in to cool the spindle. And if we have penetration inside this spindle, which it appears we do, of rust, there's a lot of gamble in using this type of equipment and hoping for the best with your actual business. Now, if you're just a hobbyist and you don't care about, reliability is not really a big concern. I hear that a lot. I hear guys say, well, reliability, I'll get there. I'm starting out. Let me clue you in on something. 9 out of 10 of you, by the time you get this machine running, you will want it to run smoothly. I don't care if you're just cutting circles all day. You'll want it to run smoothly because you're so excited to see that, wow, this robot, it's mine and I can do what I want with it. I can't emphasize it enough. Once you find out what this machine is capable of in your mind, and then you digitally see that you're creating stuff and can actually physically have that in reality, it changes the whole perception of things, and then that hobby that you started out grows expensively. And I can't explain it any better than that. It grows expensively because you're going to realize really quick this thing with unreliability is just not going to work. I don't care who it is. It just does not work. And that's why I'm telling you, when you see stuff like this, and we see surface rust not only on the actual port fittings, but we also see it on the cap screws that are actually mounting the cap of the spindle, this already tells us this machine has had a very rough, neglected life. Okay? As we go through, we're going to get more validation. Okay? Here's the back of a motor. Okay, we can see it's a proprietary design because there's no rear bearing here. This is, I don't know what this is. We see some geometry in the back, just circle with some pivot points and whatnot. Either way, we know it's a proprietary design. Easiest way to tell proprietary designs, there's no actual general markings on the stepper. We can see here that the stepper is just, again, the typical black coating, but we do not see any additional markings for referencing. And they do that typically because it's a proprietary design and the manufacturer understands that they are going to expect you, if the motor ever fails, the machine ever gives you issues, they're going to expect you to come right back to them and purchase the part, gives them that part security, and gives them the lineage of the actual machine. Keep that in mind, okay? As we look over here, we can see, and this is the details I'm always looking for, what kind of cables are used, okay? Aside from popular belief, the cables on your machine are extremely critical because they carry all the signals to the motors that are automating the system. If those signals get corrupted, and most of the signals are 5 volt, which are very low voltage, it does not take much to corrupt those signals. If they become corrupted, your machine becomes a paperweight, and that's totally useless. So again, cable selection, cable choice, the devil is in the details. Okay, CNC, I tell you guys all the time, when I see wiring like this, and I can tell right now that none of this is actually shielded cable, and on confirmation of that, I know that the potential client explained to me that shielded cable was not used as well. So all of this has to be replaced, of course, and again, replacing it, time, money will go on. This is probably one of the most telltale pictures of a neglected system. We can see here we've got corrosion, we've got rust. We also have right here, let me just zoom in a little bit. We can see we have corrosion, we have rust. We got the slide bearing here where we actually have extensive grease that's actually being just on the outside. It's all over the rail. This is not what you want to see when you're purchasing a used system. Now guys, not every system that's used is in this kind of condition. I can't emphasize that enough. It's like I stated in the beginning of the video. If you go to a factory and you're buying a used system that just was pulled out of commission, they're usually going to have a preventative maintenance sheet, a maintenance chart, a servicing chart, either from a tech, an engineer, either a maintenance department. 9 out of 10 times, if you're buying from a factory and the machine was running with that kind of availability of chart and validation, and most of them will be happy to show you the machine running, a 5x10 table, just for an arbitrary example, is going to run you about $8,000 to $12,000 on the slow side. Okay? When you start looking at used equipment that's running, we already know the money is going to change totally as far as what you're going to be spending. When I look at a machine like this and I hear that, you know, you're buying a 5x10 table, and this is only a 5x5 chassis we're reviewing now, but if you're buying a 5x10, let's not be naive and let's use common sense. If you're buying it for $1,500, odds are the whole machine has to be rebuilt. Okay? Keep that in mind, because I don't know what you pay yourself, but I certainly don't pay myself minimum wage. So if that's something you want to take on as an endeavor as a hobbyist, so be it. If that's the time you want to spend, it's no different than restoring a car. Take that into consideration. If you're looking at actually producing something with this to expand your business and thinking, hey, I'm going to save money, that money will be saved pending you're willing to invest your time, which once again translates to money, and also if you're willing to take on the endeavor and learn, because there's going to be a steep learning curve if you've never dealt with this kind of equipment. So looking at this, and on top of what I just said, looking at this where we see surface rust, you know, grease actually coming out of the bearings. We see here we have surface rust on the lead screw bearing. We even see here the grease port has got rust on it. We've got paint on it. All of this should be stripped. Once again, once it's stripped with aircraft remover, it needs a rust converter on it. And similar to what you do with restoring a car. I mean, with a steel chassis, you're dealing with steel. It rusts very easily. We can see we've got surface rust forming already in the base of the unit. Definitely not a good sign. This particular client is located in Canada. A lot of you guys in the States, I'm in Florida. The humidity here is ridiculous. It's like living in a jungle. If this equipment is outside for longer than 3 days, surface rust will start forming. Typically in high humid environments, actually in Florida, I've seen it as little, in the firearms industry, as little as 6 hours. So I'm telling you guys, be very careful when you're looking at stuff like this, because when I see stuff like this, all I see is money. Money and time. And if you're okay with that, so be it. It depends on the value you're getting. If you're getting a table, if you paid, $2,500 for a table that's not running in this condition, I feel that's a lot of money. Okay, I'm being totally honest with you. I know most of you are shaking your head. You're probably like, hell yes, it is. It's a lot of money because by the time you get this table up and running, you're not only investing that money, additional money, but we're in additional time. So it all translates. This is horrific, though. Again, we do see ball screws, which is excellent. And again, this table is industrial grade. You can see here the quality of the ball screw. It's definitely there. But if we see rust like this on the external part of the chassis, you can rest assured you're definitely going to want to make sure there's no surface rust on them ball screws, because if there is, your tolerance levels become negated and the whole system then is more just moving and not doing what it should. We want perfect linearity. Everything on this system should move like butter. If it's not smooth as glass, you're never going to translate that into the components you're trying to fabricate. So keep that in mind. So once again, just looking at this, just rehashing, these bearings definitely have to be gone over. These bearings definitely have to be gone over and cleaned and stripped. I would disassemble the entire chassis as far as at least the transmission points on this and start from the rebuilding point from there. Once again, you can analyze whether you actually want to repair or replace the bearings. That will be up to the end user, but I can tell you right now, if it was my preference, most of the time replacing the bearings usually makes the most sense, so you have a baseline of knowing when that machine was properly serviced last. You start with new components, you are going to essentially get a new machine. The question is, does it fit your budget? And again, how bad the bearings are. If you clean them properly and you clean them really, really well with the proper chemicals, you can get usually the same result. The question is, how much time are you willing to invest, as well as the money aspect. So let's keep moving. Let's see, I'll close this out. Okay, let's pick which one we want to go next. Here's an external mount on the motor, and again, we can see here no motor riding on here. I can definitely tell you again, we can see it's proprietary, and again, these motors are very short bodied. You can see that it's not a typical, and we see this a lot on proprietary systems. It's not a typical NEMA 23 elongated body. They're usually like 57 mil, and once you go past that, you're really looking at, your body and casing can go from NEMA 23, NEMA 24, NEMA 34, NEMA 42. This chassis, I can tell you, on a 5x5 ratio, a G540 system is typically going to do this really a lot of justice, and we'll go with either 300 to 600 ounce, depending what kind of transmission. In this instance, this individual's got a chassis with the ball screws, of course, and he'll have his actual choice. I would recommend 600 ounce only because of the $20 differential. I tell you that, guys, all the time, especially if you're looking at dealing with metal substrates. You're looking at double the torque for a $20 price differential. And that's why I kind of did that, because 9 out of 10 times, 300 to 600 ounce is going to give you the most bang for your buck around the G540 and around most of your applications without breaking the bank. You'll get the precision you're looking for, you'll get the speed you're looking for, and again, we can retrofit a chassis like this in minutes. That's the actual easy part, is actually bolting on the electronics. So we can also see here that this has slight paint overspray on it, which tells me either the end user, whoever's selling the system, actually sprayed the chassis with the motors on there, or again, this potential client did that. I'm not sure which. But when you get paint on the motors, or you see that, if you ever see that when you're going to purchase a used system, keep in mind that the motors then were sprayed on the chassis. We don't know if you have paint penetration inside the bearings. We don't know what was done. So again, proceed with caution. Common sense prevails as usual. This is probably the most telltale sign on the bottom of the chassis. That's probably one of the worst pictures I've seen, mainly because of the amount of surface rust we see on the support factors here. We can see here that the bearing block that's actually going to the leads, or the ball screw, appears to be at least dirty in some degree, which I would not doubt at all is surface rust actually hidden in there. This bearing definitely looks horrible. As we come back in the table, we can see here, I'm sure there's penetration of rust there as well. This individual told me that this table was sitting in a garage in Canada for a year. Now, you guys all know what kind of weather Canada gets. We're looking at this. You can see your corner supports. The amount of surface rust on this table, the entire chassis would need to be disassembled. All of the surface rust removed with either a Scotch-Brite or chemical additives. And once that's completed, then you guys would basically go and seal the chassis again. And like I said, you're basically going through the process of what you do with restoring a car. You know, I just wanted to let you guys know that I am working with getting private labeling instructions from Kano Laboratories, because if you're not familiar with Kano Laboratories, they make industrial chemicals for some of the best Fortune 500 companies: Boeing, NASA, Lockheed Martin, GE. But their chemicals traditionally are not offered in mass-produced areas for small business. I know the quality of their restoration components and penetrating oils, and again, our equipment needs this type of technology, and I'm happy to say that I will be working with them. I'm about to release some products, and especially on a job like this, it's unfortunate this potential client's in Canada, because I want you guys to have the same actual support equipment and tools, whether it be liquids, chemicals, whatever it may be, that full-scale Fortune 500 use, because I know it's going to increase the longevity of your equipment. And if you guys are looking at retrofitting your equipment, you got to use the right products to make the job as easy as possible. It's, you know, most of the time you guys are trying to save the money. You're willing to do the job yourself, and that's great. But without the right tools, it just elongates the process, and then on top of that, it costs more time, more money. We're trying to do it right. But you can see definitely here definitively, this chassis has got some work that definitely needs to be done. We can also see over here the electronic aspect. We'll go through that with some more pictures, but we can see here quick connects and, you know, all kinds of things going on here. Rat nest wiring, no shielding. A lot of manufacturers like to incorporate integration in their chassis. They like to put the controller right in the chassis and make it look, you know, totally ergonomic and as one. China's doing it now. I've discussed it in previous videos. This is usually a headache to work with, mainly because it is in the chassis. You're much better off segregating your electronics for multiple reasons. Main reason is EMI. We want to keep them signals, again, as clean as possible. And then on top of that, we also want to make sure that the chassis itself is stable. We want to make sure that as you actually start cutting into it, and this is something I've never really discussed before, but again, not so much on this chassis, it's steel. When you're dealing with aluminum chassis and you're modifying things and you're tweaking things and you're adding all kinds of stuff to it, odds are you will usually create less rigidity than just leaving it alone. It simplifies the process, on top of the fact that it makes things easier to service. Working on this underneath the chassis is a complete pain in the ass, and that's just putting it mildly. Okay, so you're much better off having this segregated. I believe this right here is his actual VFD, which is a definitive no-no, because we're dealing with the EMI. You can definitely see no shielded cable here. So just analyzing this picture, and the client already explained to me that the VFD turns on, but he has no manual with it. Okay, so if he doesn't have a manual with it, you're certainly not going to be able to run the VFD. We don't know the programming of it. We know nothing. There's no manufacturing real name on it, and you guys are starting from scratch. So whether the system turns on and you have no manuals, you have no history, of course the end user selling it to you can't provide this information, you guys are really just taking a shot in the dark. So be very cautious. Once again, we see this, and you can defiantly know that right now the end user will be replacing the VFD, the spindle, and of course all the cabling that's involved, which again, all these parts cost time and cost money. Let's go over to the next picture. This one's an interesting picture of a hidden stepper. Now this happens a lot when you see proprietary designs where, once again, these manufacturers like to incorporate, you know, making their machines look ergonomic. The issue with this is typically they're using a non-standard size stepper casing for the motor. So it may be a NEMA 23 format, but it's a short NEMA 23, or a NEMA 34 format, but it's a short NEMA 34. When that happens, you're going to have to buy a special motor, or you're going to remove the shroud. Now, I can tell you right now, 9 out of 10 times, removing the shroud is the best way to go for multiple reasons. The main reason is steppers produce an enormous amount of heat. A stepper motor you can literally cook an egg on when you overvolt the motor, which we all do. My steppers are rated to 3.1 volts, and what we always do is add more voltage to a stepper to increase the torque and the speed and resolution. So the more actual voltage we increase with the stepper, we're going to see more speed, but the byproduct is more heat. So when they're encased like this, especially in this confined area, we don't see heat sinks on here. There's certainly no fan on the motor. It definitely is getting much hotter than is required. And again, servicing the unit, that's the next thing. There's absolutely no reason to encase a motor, not only for the fitment principles that I discussed, but also if you keep the motor out in the open, it's much easier to service, and that's extremely important. So keep that in mind. Again, we can see here their attempt of wire management, which is just looks like some serrated cable tie. Definitely not something you guys would want to stay with in the stock format. And again, we can even see paint on this, which is pretty amazing because this motor's hidden. So he must have just, or whoever did it, must have sprayed underneath the table or whatnot. I'm not exactly certain here, but you can definitely see that this chassis definitely needs servicing. Okay, so that pretty much sums up those. I want to come over and now show you the controller, because a lot of these systems have controllers like this. Actually this, I believe, is the VFD in the back. That's what we're actually looking at here. And again, you can definitely see what I'm saying. There's no shielded cable whatsoever, lots of butt joints. Nothing here is at all even remotely close to the wiring of a system of this caliber. You can see that the chassis appears to be on wheels, or something over here is on wheels. Again, frame is very secure, very rigid chassis, but this is just horrific. Definitely needs to be replaced. Let's see if we can go to the controller. Okay, this is what you typically see on chassis that are this old. I'm assuming again, I'm looking at this and I'm guessing it's probably from the mid-90s, early 90s to mid-90s. We do see insulation here. We do have looks like a DB25 parallel port or another DB connector, but we can definitely see here that it's got electrical tape on it. We see hot glue, and this is really interesting. Okay. We see hot glue again, you can definitely tell that whoever sold this system obviously opened it up. Apparently the client explained to me that this piece right here was actually mounted on the fan. I'm not exactly certain why, but this is exactly what you'd be looking at, and something that you definitely would want to basically 86. None of this stuff is going to be usable, and by the time you rewire everything, you're rebuilding everything anyways. So unless you wanted to save the actual electrical enclosure, that's something you could definitely stay with. But overall, what we're looking at here is just a total rebuild. So we already know that the chassis needs to be redone. This definitely follows suit. And once again, I hate to say it, but the end user, and when I say the end user, I'm sorry, the potential client, never asked the seller to see inside the controller. If he would have done that, this would have probably been a heads up of, hey, I can't do it. This is just not right. Either that, or I always say, it gives you guys more bargaining power. I would definitely say if you review a system and it looks like this, I would have at least, negated the price down. At least I would bring it down to maybe $500-600, because that's about what this chassis is worth in this condition with the refurbishing that needs to be done. And that's the big thing I want you guys to know. I want you guys to understand that you have to control the seller. If you guys are not going to make the sellers responsible, I don't care if it's a personal user, I don't care, again, if it's a Fortune 500 company you're buying the equipment from, if you're not making them aware that you understand what you're looking at to that degree of saying, hey, I know the kind of work that's going to be involved in refurbishing this, they are going to sit and take advantage of you. They're never going to volunteer, most of them, to show you inside the controller. Hell, I've said this before, most of the guys that are popping up all over the internet like weeds that are selling these systems now, they don't volunteer to show you inside their electronics. So if new systems aren't doing it, you can rest assured most used system owners will not do it. So please, always ask to see inside the controllers, mainly for a couple reasons. This is worst case scenario, okay? The other factor is the more you guys educate yourself on buying used equipment, because there is a huge market for it, it makes you more aware of if it's been tampered with. When I see connections like this over here, that are all over the place. You can see they're arched, they're bent. That tells me right away that these have been manipulated. This has definitely been manipulated. I mean, this is just a mess. I mean, I don't know if this is a wall pack here. It looks like a wall wart. I'm not sure. But again, it's just a mess. And when you see that, 9 out of 10 times, if the end user or the seller has opened the chassis and tampered with something, I always recommend you to walk away. Okay? There is a reason in manufacturing a product where I'm sure you guys have seen they put tamper labels on things. Power supplies always have them. Typically, that's probably it right there. They do that because if an end user opens it, they do not want to be responsible for it. Most of you already are aware of that. They also usually will not honor warranty, and they won't take back the unit. Okay? Gecko has that in their actual replacement warranty. And with due rights, you know, I'm the same way. If I see that something's been opened and tampered with, unless I give you authorization to do that, that makes me nervous because I don't know if it's going to be up to the level that it should be done. And if you find out that it's not and there's a problem, then these manufacturers can't warranty anything. So you have to look at it from that perspective. It has to be on that same page. When you see someone manipulating anything inside the box that doesn't look right to your eyes, 9 out of 10 times it's not. You don't have to be electrical to look at this and say that this is not correct. I mean, think about it, guys, and look at the money you're spending. Just equivalate the money you're spending to what you're getting. This looks like something you'd find at the bottom of the ocean in this condition. So would I give thousands of dollars for that? No, I wouldn't. So you would do the same, and that's what I say. I say you guys look at that perspective, and as long as it logically makes sense, so be it. If it doesn't, it's better to ask, okay? So as we came over here, I'm going to come over the corner side now, show you the back. And this angle is just a different angle, but again, you can definitely see, I mean, the IEC port, they did not want to use heat shrink. I love this. They did not want to use heat shrink, so they used hot glue, which blows my mind. I have no clue what this is right here. I've never seen anything like this. It's frightening. It's absolutely frightening. And again, it confirms the fact that the controller, of course, has to be rebuilt. And a controller minimum, depending upon how many axes, you're looking at between, again, $800 to $1,000, depending on configuration, how many axes. There's a lot of variables there, but that's what you're generally looking at. So keep this in mind. This is atrocious. This is one of the worst. So now what I want to do, we've already discussed all this. You guys now have a pretty good baseline of what to expect when refurbishing a chassis. I want to discuss transmissions, because I get asked this all the time, and one of the biggest things that I get asked is what we can do as far as looking at different transmissions in terms of motion and in terms of actually looking at performance. Okay, I get asked all the time about ball screw and rack and pinion and what I recommend. And then I tell you guys what I recommend. Most of you accept what I say is to be accurate, but there are quite a few that want to challenge me. So I say, you know what, why believe me? And I've said this numerous times. I want you guys to challenge me if you feel that I'm saying something incorrect. However, I can rest assured to you that right now I'm doing, and this is not an exaggeration, I'm doing about 18 hours a day of working with either clients that have systems, clients that want systems, and then building systems. And that's literal time, about 18 hours a day. And I've done this now for about solid online for about 7 years. And prior to that, I've got at least 12 years experience in that field. Okay? I can tell you right now, and after you guys have spoken to me, you've watched my videos, most of you have taken into that account that either I'm extremely lucky at what I do or I know what I'm talking about. Again, my feedback on eBay is 100%. I'm at, I believe, 1094, 100% with that kind of rating. That in one of the toughest markets, once again, dictates that I'm either really lucky or I really know what I'm talking about. But as we look at this, and this is what I really love, when I find other manufacturers, Shop Saber is a company that's been around quite some time. They manufacture pro-grade level CNC routers. And why I say they're pro-grade, we're looking at 20,000 and above as far as to get into one of their systems. And they put an interesting article together about ball screw versus rack and pinion. And once again, The first topic, I just want to point out the first topic, unbeatable accuracy and durability. And I'm just going to read to you this a little bit, an excerpt. Traditionally, lower-cost CNC routing systems were driven by a rack and pinion system, while high-priced aerospace and metalworking mills were ball screw driven. Now, guys, think about what that one opening sentence says. Okay? When I hear guys asking me about which do I recommend, if your budget, and I'm not going to go into this whole thing because you can see here where this is going. They're telling you about ball screws and the big difference between rack and pinion. If your budget allows using a ball screw type actual transmission, I highly recommend doing so. Highly recommend doing so. It's easier to maintain, and I'll just shorten and just sum this up, which I've covered in numerous videos before. It's easier to maintain. It's easier on the actual equipment as far as longevity for your spindles and everything else. There's less jarring motion. If you look here at the rack and pinion, you're not dealing with gear mesh issues. That's what they're going to basically go over about how the gear mesh can change over time. I call it drift. They may have a different term for it, but it happens over time where the gear mesh will change because there's excess load on the machine. The main factor, and I'm going to put this link so you guys can check this out yourself, validating, once again, what I've said to confirm that I'm not just lucky, guys. This is what I do. If Shop Sabre, who's been in, again, manufacturing, if any of you guys have looked at their systems, most of you won't because the pricing is just ridiculous. But they're telling you, they're breaking it down as far as what you'd be looking at. And they have even come down as far as to say and bring up the fact that we're looking at $100,000 systems. Here you go. Choose design that has been proven in high-end CNC systems in the $100,000 price range. I think that says enough. I mean, I really don't have to go through. You can watch his video, explaining for the company and whatnot. But what's really interesting is this whole excerpt is online, readily available for you guys to review, and you will notice right away the benefits. Ball screws are, I'm just going to sum it up, more accurate, less servicing, which is more time in your pocket, more money. And they're much easier to set up in terms of motion for accuracy. A lot of guys don't take the tramming and the actual axis calibration into consideration. Gear engagement you're always dealing with for rack and pinion. Drift is where, again, the rack may shift over times. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, okay? And why I say there are exceptions to the rule, whenever a CNC is under load, you're much better off going with a ball screw. Any type of router, any type of mill, ball screw. You don't see Bridgeports using rack and pinion. Belt drive, my theory on belt drive is very short and sweet. Belt drive systems are a lot of maintenance, and they are more a mechanical actual machine that is not really prone towards accurate motion. And why I say that is there's a lot of moving parts. The more moving parts you have that are not linear, you're going to have inaccuracy. Okay? Think about it in that terms. You have more variables you're dealing with. With belts, you're dealing with tension on the belt. You're dealing with pinions. Do the teeth on the pinions grab the belt in the proper format? How much horizontal force you have on your shafts of your motors? I've had guys actually break shafts because they think, okay, I'm just going to tighten it as tight as I can because tighter means better, and I'm going to get farther with this as if it's tighter. And then they actually put that horizontal force on a hardened shaft. Over time, it weakens, and guess what? That's it. I'm telling you now, the top two are going to be rack and pinion and ball screw. Once again, budget allowance, if you have a load on the machine, the ball screw is definitely going to be the way to go. If you're dealing with a plasma system, once again, a different animal, okay? Tolerance is not as critical typically on a plasma. Okay, typically my clients that are dealing with plasma, 2 to 3 thousandths, they're good. The variations of the machine having excessive load are not there, mainly because there's no load with a plasma. Okay, the torch is being moved around the actual the chassis itself, and it weighs nothing. If there's no real load other than the supporting weight of the substrates, the rack and pinion is usually going to be your best option. Unless, of course, your budget allows ball screw. Now, if you need that kind of precision, I say go with ball screw. If you're doing metal art if you're doing stuff that's brackets, if you're doing, most cosmetic fabrication do not require that kind of accuracy. And with no load on the machine, the rack and pinion will be the most economical version. However, what I want to make very, very, very clear is there is a number of manufacturers who are liking to come out of the woodwork. Once again, they're coming up with business models saying, hey, I can build a chassis, and they say, hey, we've done it with a rack and pinion system, and it's this, 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 and this. Bottom line is this. If the system you're buying has a rack and pinion, regardless of what a manufacturer tells you, rack and pinion for a router is not best suited. You're going to have additional loads. You're going to have the inaccuracy problems. Like I said, you're more than welcome. I'm going to put this actual link to this article in here that now I'm not just saying it. One of the largest manufacturers of high-end CNC professional routers in the country is also saying it. Now it's been validated. And once again, the more you guys see this, I hope that you guys start following suit with what I'm telling you, because I'm telling you right now, the big thing you want to do when it comes to actually engineering your machine is understand the transmission, because that is the whole automation of your system. Okay? Understand what you're getting involved with. Servicing a rack and pinion for a plasma system is never as difficult as servicing a rack and pinion for a router. One of the biggest misconceptions is that rack and pinions are, easy in the format that they're cheaper. That's the number one thing, is that most of these manufacturers are looking at price point. They know that their price point goes down, which means their profitability goes up when they're offering these machines in that format. If you're dealing with a plasma system where there's no load and no worry of debris, contamination of the rack, that's something that's very seldom discussed. They actually discuss it in this article. You're pretty much fine. Like I said, the plasma system, you're not generally dealing with load, you're good. When you're dealing with a router, we're also dealing with constant debris hitting that actual rack. And when it does that, that gear goes over that, it can throw your tolerances off. Okay? The drift factor, like I said, over time, those gears wear. Everything wears. And as it wears, your tolerances get increased, and it's usually very gradual that you may or may not see. Of course, it's more prominent, once again, on a loaded machine. Once again, not designed around routing. I deal with clients that tell me, well, I found, matter of fact, this happened to me the other day, unfortunately, and I hate being the bearer of bad news. I just want to be honest with you guys. When I see clients that come to me and say, hey, I found a system that's $4,000 and it has a rack and pinion, and then I review the site, and then I look at the site and it says, oh, well, I'm looking at this rack and pinion system and I'm seeing this, but I really think I'm doing great because I'm getting a bigger system at the cost of, maybe a Chinese 6040. The thing you got to realize is this. Size of the machine, and I've said this before, size does not matter. It matters your application. It really does. That old saying, and it's so funny, that size doesn't matter, it's how you use it. It's very, very true in automation. I have jewelers that make well over 6 figures a year with the tiniest of machines, whether they're Sherlins or Tags. It's a matter of your application and in how you understand it. Okay? You are usually better, and I mean this, you're usually better going with a smaller machine with a better transmission than you are going with a larger machine with, whatever transmission you decide to manufacture or articulate, because you'll have more usability out of the smaller machine. The overhead is much lower on a smaller machine. It's easier to store. It's easier to work with. Think about that. Okay? Don't always put so much effort into large. Large is not always where you want to be. I'm telling you right now, especially if you're a small business, you're better off cutting out 100 brackets a day that are 2-inch than cutting out 4-foot brackets, unless you have a crew, because 9 out of 10 times to do that kind of work, you will require that, because you're dealing with larger substrates, you're dealing with more bulk, you have to store all that stuff in different size formats. Take that into consideration. So that's why I say, looking at these formats and reviewing these things and these other vendors popping up, oh, hey, I've started building CNC machines, I'm a mechanical engineer. Great. You're a mechanical engineer, or you have an engineering background. I hear this all the time. That's great. The thing to realize is, just because you get the price point of the machine at a certain level, understand what you're offering the public. There's more detail involved in saying, hey, my machine cuts accurately. Now, it cuts accurately. That's the point I'm making. Now it cuts accurately. How does it cut a year from now? Most of these corporations, or I should say companies, small companies that are coming out of the woodwork, they are not taking the time studies in to see how this machine performs over a year, 5 years, 10 years. That's what the difference of Shop Sabre and companies like this have done. They've put these machines out in the field and said, let's see how they perform. They've done the time study. They've got a proven business model, and then they release them, and that's what you're paying for. These other guys, when you're paying $4,000 for a machine, you're hoping that they're going to offer the support and that machine is where it should be. That's why if you're able to, most of you now have gotten to the realization it's better for you to build your own machine because you know what you did to it. And that's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to be empowered with knowledge. Be empowered with knowledge to understand what you're getting involved with. And that's why I said, if you read this article, just keep in mind, ball screw is always going to be the best way to go. And like I said, with vendors that are, a matter of fact, this vendor, and I have to bring this up because I've seen this now numerous times, and as a small business owner, most of you guys out there that are small business owners have seen things like this. And I have to say, be wary of certain claims. This particular instance, I read an actual warranty that was, you get a warranty from this company. It was offering a warranty that was 1 year, no questions asked on any part of the machine. Now, guys, I have to say this as a small business owner, and all my small business owners out there or business owners will understand where I'm coming from. If that was the question with automation type manufacturing industrial equipment, these companies would all be broke. There is absolutely no way you could just simply restore an entire machine based on, someone saying, hey, you know what, this part failed. Hey, you know what, this part failed. There's too many variations and variables there on end user actual knowledge. When they buy the machines, there's no guarantee that they understand them. Everybody provides support differently. I would be out of business if I had a client come back to me and say, hey, you know what, my power supply, it's giving me trouble. And I just said, okay, I'm going to replace it. I can't do that. I'll go through troubleshooting. If it's still not right, we'll get it working. But there's no way logically a company would be in business and be able to do that. When I see warranties like that being offered and I see a copyright on the website that says 2018, that means this guy just got in the business. So that means that odds are he's not aware of what all those intricacies of running a business of that aptitude is like. When you're in an industrial field, people do all kinds of things. Applications, all kinds of mishaps happen all the time. God forbid you're not getting hurt, but aside from that, a lot of them come up and you have to handle them in a way that, is best suited to your applications. And most of the time when they do come up, some of them are catastrophic. Some of them require total access rebuilds. That could be extremely costly, especially to an end user who's just beginning to learn to run the machine. I can't tell you how many clients out there, and I'm sure they're shaking their head now, have actually made contact and crashed the machine, whether it be minor or major. And then you have to go back to recalibrating, checking everything. I mean, that could be enormous amount of profit loss or an enormous amount of cost retention for that company doing that. Think in terms of your small business. If one of your clients said, hey, you know what? Over a course of a year, if you don't like it, just give back. I'll do it. I'll take it back. You couldn't do it. You wouldn't be in business. There's no way you can do that. I'm sure everybody understands my point. There's nothing wrong with offering a warranty, but when you see these warranties that are way too good to be true, be careful, guys. Be careful. I don't want anybody to be misled. And I think, like I said, online, it's the Wild West. There's a lot of misinformation. Just because it's online doesn't mean it's factual. Keep doing your homework. Keep validating. That's the whole point, But one thing I want to make perfectly clear. What I'm telling you, I want you guys to validate. Once I tell you my validation, and once I give you the fact that, look, I'm providing another validation, okay? You're going to validate it there. I want you to. But at a certain point, if you still find distrust in what I'm saying, and I've had this happen quite a few times too, I want to be honest. I want you guys to know that certain clients will challenge me, and I'm fine with that. If at a certain point you still feel what I'm saying is inaccurate or not where you want it to be, then don't come to me. And I mean that sincerely. I would rather not have your business than have you understand that I'm not here to be challenged in the respect that you feel you know more than me, and yet I've questioned you and you tell me you've never built a machine before, and I swear to you, I've had this happen. I've asked that question. Have you built a machine before? No. Okay. If you think I'm wrong, prove I'm wrong. And if you can't prove I'm wrong and you still challenge me, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not going to challenge you. This is a professional environment. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to be honest with you and educate. And that's what I'm doing. I want you guys to know where your money is going. This way, we form the right business model. And the business model I want to form is a client for life. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for, offering you ridiculous warranties. We're not looking for, going in and saying you're instantly going to make $100,000 a year. There's a lot of work involved to get to that point, but it's definitely doable. And that's what I'm here to do, give you the outlook of understanding what you need to know. And again, doing videos like this hopefully are helping, looking at, the breakdown of just the transmission here, overall cut forces and machine movements. They even go into that. Again, very interesting article, once again confirming everything I said. You guys, I think, have a lot of information to digest, and again, I want you guys to be aware of what you're doing, and I hope this video has helped you and any of the people out there looking to get involved in CNC, and my subscribers. I love you guys. I want you to know that I'm doing my best. I've got a couple plans for the future. I'd like to do maybe a once-a-month sale. I'm going to try to work with my vendors and see what I can come up with. But what I want to do is maybe a once-a-month sale where I can drop my prices as low as I possibly can for maybe 5 or 6 kits to all the people that have subscribed and helped me grow. I want to give something back to you and offer you prices that are as low as I can go. I mean, my kits, most of you guys already know my history. I try to offer the most value I can do, give you guys the highest quality, but Gecko, for instance, just came out with a 3-year warranty. They're now offering a 3-year warranty on all of their drives, which is amazing. They're also offering a 90-day return window. Okay, so not only are they made in America, but they've got a 3-year warranty and a 90-day return window, again, dealing with how they actually deal with stuff. If you guys look at that, that is unprecedented in this industry. Okay. I feel it's a no-brainer, but I want to make it, as far as choices, but I want to make it more applicable to guys out there who are still looking and thinking, I have to purchase overseas because I can't afford things. If I can do 5 packages a month and help somebody else out that's been helping me, only thing I ask is that you subscribe to my channel to keep my support going. I will do that. And we could do 5. I'll do 5 packages a month of something that I'll come up with, whether it be plasma system kits or router kits, whatever it may be. And we'll get this going to where I'll try to keep the prices as low as possible. Again, I'll do it based on like a 5-system format. The reason I'll do it that way is that I'm not losing my ass, so to speak. I mean, I'm still in business to make money, but I want to do it to where you guys have the best overall options when looking at either building a system or retrofitting a system yourself. I want us to grow together, and I can't emphasize that enough. I feel sometimes that, I feel it really, corporate America typically is they get to the top, these big corporations get to the top and they forget that it was the little people that got them there. And I want to remember that. I look at it, if we can grow together in symmetry, that's the way it should be. I mean, that's the way, America should be. Unfortunately, we know that that's not always the case. And if I can do my part to bring that back and offer you guys as much value as possible, not only that, give you equipment that I know you can be certain of, that's what we're going to do. And that's what this information is about. So again, I hope you guys have found this video interesting. I'm sorry to keep it as long as it was, but there is a lot of information to cover here. I hope you guys have watched it to the end. And if you guys do have questions, once again, you can contact me at storm, STORM 2313 at gmail.com. That is my direct email. And you can also contact me through my eBay store, which I'll give you a contact link below. If you guys like the videos, please like and subscribe. Again, I'm trying to, continue this series. There's going to be a lot more information to cover. And like I said, I've got a couple ideas that I'm throwing around. I've got a lot of new products coming out that I know is going to help you guys tremendously as far as maintaining your equipment, setting it up correctly. That's what we want. I want you guys to grow and empower yourself by educating and learning it yourself. And in this way, when problems arise, you've got the knowledge to handle it with your own small business. So thank you again. Take care.